My name is Assistant Professor Rebecca Eisler at San Francisco State University, and I am a member of the Political Science Department.
My name is Ariana Nasiri. I just turned 18 years old. I'm a freshman at Georgetown University, majoring in American government and international business, and I'm currently the youth leader of the Vote 16 campaign.
I'm John Tresvania. I'm California Executive Director for Generation Citizen. We're a national nonprofit focused on youth voice and civic engagement.
Proposition 18 is trying to expand the electorate. The idea being, if you turn 18 before the general election in November, but after the primary in California, which this year was held in early March, that going forward, you would have the right to participate in the primary and any special elections that happen in between the primary and the general election, even if you haven't yet turned 18. So for example, if your birthday was in April, so you'd be 18 in November, but you weren't 18 in March, you'd be able to participate in that March primary.
So Vote 16, now known as Proposition G, is a local ballot measure here in San Francisco that would expand voting rights for municipal elections to 16 and 17, only within the city and county of San Francisco.
I would say young people are taking the lead, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on gun violence in schools, and some of the police issues as well. So that's why we see a rising interest in people being able to speak out. And frankly, having people be able to speak out through the voting ballot is critically important.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really bummed when I realized, I'm not gonna be old enough to vote in the primary, especially because, at least for this election, with the number of people that were running for the Democratic nomination and then who we knew is receiving the GOP nomination, I venture to argue that the primary is more important than the general in terms of how the general is going to actually play out. And, watching that election, sitting back and thinking that, I have the power and the capability to write legislation and put it on a ballot and campaign for it and fundraise, but then I can't vote. That was kind of a really off-putting realization. And that's the same realization that a lot of young people are having lately, is that we are mobilizing and we are activists and we're protesting for our rights, but then we don't get to vote. So all this work that we're doing is not being listened to by the current electorate. So what good is it,
San Francisco would be the largest city in the country to have the voting age lowered to age 16 and 17.
There's no way of knowing how many people might take advantage of this opportunity unless this opportunity is given. I could sort of see arguments on both sides saying, like, look, there probably aren't that many more people who will vote if this is passed. So why not expand the franchise in this sort of limited case? What's the harm?
It's deflating to start to fine-tune your political voice and understand what your opinions are on certain pieces of legislation, knowing that they impact you directly, but then not being able to vote on them. So it kind of just feels like, you're passively watching government unfold, and how can you have a part in it if you can't vote? So I do think that understanding of, I don't have the right to vote, does deflate a lot of community members. So a lot of the work of the Vote 16 campaign is showing young people, look how this proposition directly impacts you. And even just playing it out. We create, hypothetical situations and reveal that almost every single proposition on a local ballot impacts each young individual directly. So that realization helps a lot of young people to be re-energized. But again, that's not something that's often talked about on a local or even national level.
I think this is an echo of these various youth-led movements, getting the momentum. Because there have been discussions almost every election cycle about, why is the voting age 18? In some ways, it's arbitrary. We picked it. It has seemingly worked, but why not have it be 16, or this sort of adjusted 18 minus some months. And I think because we've seen a greater culture and skill of activism, because again, like voting, those are skills, we're seeing it come to fruition in this moment.
Proposition G, Proposition 18, will empower students in a different way than they are today. It gives them voice at 16 and 17 that they do not currently have. But all young people need to be engaged, and we have a lot of work to do as a society and as a country. These are two important steps which can have an impact in the future of our communities.
We aren't just born knowing how to go about voting, what the task requires. That requires teaching. And so if we move the age a little lower and incorporate the teaching of the mechanisms of voting in schools, then we might see a difference in behavior.
And of course, a lot of times young people will say, oh, I'm not excited about this candidate, so why would I vote for either of them? I'm not super enthusiastic about either. And yes, it's unfortunate that the way that US government right now is laid out and the way elections are crafted, it's very difficult to have the capability to vote for a candidate that perfectly reflects your needs. That's just the way that the two-party system is crafted, unfortunately. But change only happens when we continue to vote and we continue to push back against the norm and the status quo.